All right, we're off and running on a Tuesday. Hope everybody's having a great day. Look at this. I started the show. I don't even have the correct background going at the, I'm supposed to have all this stuff done ahead of time. You would think I would have had it done. Let's get that new background. There we go. Hey, we're now official. Let's go. Sammy's in the house Tuesday. Lot to talk about. Big Niner Day. I'll be down there in an hour or two. But first, we got a lot to talk about. Let's get it rolling right here, right now. Off and running on a Tuesday. Welcome to the Krueger Show, brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. And they do run out, so get there early, get the brisket. Get some brisket chili. Tell them Krug sent you. We're also brought to you by our good friends at Claw Daddy Arcades. He sent us to New Orleans. He's a great follow on Instagram at Claw_Daddy_Arcades. We'll tell you more about Sleeper. We're brought to you by Sleeper as well. Thanks to Sleeper for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. Sammy's in the house. It is Tuesday. It's a big Tuesday because the Niners play on Thursday. So they're going to try to squeeze the entire week into today. Shanahan will speak. Saleh will speak. Whoever the starting quarterback is going to be is going to speak. And we're going to hear from Kubiak as well. It's probably the full day because the Niners are off tomorrow, and then they're back on the field at SoFi Thursday against the Rams. And the Rams look good. And the Rams are favored for the first time since October 2022 against the Niners. So we got a lot to get to, and thank you all for being here. Sammy, good to see you. It's one of those things where it was a rough Sunday for the 49ers, for sure. They lose the game. They lose the trash talking. They literally talk. Why would you do that? Why would you talk trash to your opponent? But, it's like the Niners, on one hand, you could sit there and go, my God, they looked awful. They lost the game. Both quarterbacks are hurt. The running game has struggled. The offensive line's got issues. They don't have any speed at wide receiver. Nick Bosa's done for the year. They had no pass rush without him. The special teams is a circus. The red zone offense is a struggle. You could look at that and just be like, man, the Niners suck. Or you could look at it and say, hey, look, the 49ers are 3-1 out of the chute. They've won road games with two different quarterbacks. They got a top 5 offense. They got a top 5 defense. CMC is looking pretty damn good. The offense is still going to get back George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, Jordan Watkins, Jordan James. All those guys are coming back at some point. The schedule is very favorable. The linebacking core is pretty damn good. The wide receiver depth is likely to get better. The youth on defense are all talented guys who look like they're, keepers. Eddie Pinheiro looks like he's the real deal as a veteran kicker. So, Sammy, where are you on the Niners? Are you, 3-1, optimistic, bring on the Rams and let's freaking go? Or 3-1, but man, they could have been 0-4, and they've got huge issues and major problems. Where are you?
I'm generally a glass half full guy. So my coffee here, I'm excited. I've got a lot of coffee in there. Okay. That's a half full instead of a half empty guy. That's normally where I go. For the first time this Niner season, I'm upset about something, Larry. There was an opportunity this Sunday to keep the train on the tracks. Win or lose, Mac Jones as quarterback puts you in a better position for this Thursday game. And I just want to walk you down that path a little bit. So whether Brock is ready or not, the 4 extra days of trying to get ready is good for him. It also treats the Rams game like an ultimate bye week. You could have been prepping Brock the whole time, just Rams, right? Forget about the Jaguars entirely. And Brock Purdy can be thinking in the tunnel that we know this season is going to be about? How many times have you and I talked about, not only divisionally, specific to the 2 games against the Rams, this season, this division is going to come down to those 2 games. That's the most likely scenario with 2 teams that are stacked from a roster standpoint, similarly on both sides of the ball. And yet, you take an AFC game at home with a quarterback who had won 2 games in a row, and you throw that out to force Purdy back in to play this, I'm going to call it, meaningless Jaguars game, which again is a glass half full, because I think an AFC loss when you're an NFC contender is truly a half game less significant than any loss you have to an NFC opponent, and a full game less important than any team you lose to an NFC West opponent. That's where tiebreakers come in, and the Jaguars are no part of a tiebreaker. And the good news for the Niners is, guess what they have locked up, Larry? Home field in the Super Bowl. It's a pretty nice thing to have locked up when the season starts, okay? They've got home field advantage in the Super Bowl if they can get there. So it's about having home field advantage in the NFC, which is something they need to earn, and the Jags are no part of that equation. So this game, from multiple levels, should have been seen as a less important game. And forget about what Brock Purdy wants to do. Larry, how many times does a manager come out of the dugout to take a pitcher out of a game, and the pitcher is into that idea? I mean, ask Russ Ortiz, who actually at the time didn't look that upset about coming out of the game 6 against the Angels, right, with Dusty on the mound. But how did that work out? Pitchers generally want to stay in the game. Brock Purdy wants to be on the field. It's up to the doctors and the organization to tell him, you know what, take another few days. Not to mention, Brock, you don't even have to wait until next Sunday. You only got to wait till Thursday. And not only do you have to wait till Thursday, you have to wait until Thursday for the second, at most, this is the second most important game of the season. At worst, I should say. At worst, this is the second most important game of the season for the Niners. It's one of the 2 Rams games. And Brock, we want to prepare you for that game. And by the way, last season, and maybe on your resume to this point, it's your most impressive game, was game 1 against the Rams from 2024. That was an outstanding Brock Purdy game where he didn't have Kittle and didn't have Debo. I believe didn't have Ayuk, because that was also the Juwan Jennings game as well, with 3 touchdowns and 175 yards. Larry, this is a miscalculation. This is a miscalculation based on what the schedule is providing you and what you could have done to prepare Brock Purdy, almost treat it as a bye week where he doesn't have to worry about Jacksonville. He doesn't have to scramble and fill his brain with Jaguars jargon. Everything can be concentrating on what he has to do against the Rams to win what was going to be the most important game of the season to this point, whether or not you had lost to Jacksonville. That was irrelevant. The outcome of the Jags game, can I just say it, Larry? It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant to where they want to be this season.
I mean, I hear you. It's an AFC team. You know, I mean, here's the thing. Old Niner fans, and I consider myself one of them, remember the 80s and 90s. And the Niners often, in a lot of their best years, would lay an egg at home early in the season. Even in the year where they went in 15-1 in 84, maybe the greatest 49er team of all time, they still lost a home game earlier early. I think it was pretty early in the year, or it might have been October, but they lost a home game to the Steelers. It was a bad call, but they lost a home game. And they've, the 94 Niners, the last Super Bowl championship Niners. I was there. I was literally there when the Eagles rolled in and beat them 40-8. And Steve Young got pulled. Charlie Garner ran up and down the field, and the Eagles trounced the Niners. And that was one of the greatest 49er teams of all time. I mean, the 94 Niners went on to win the Super Bowl in an absolute rout. And they got over the Dallas Cowboys, who were a dynasty at that point. But they still lost to the Philadelphia Eagles 40-8 at home. So, you can't overreact to any one loss, but I do think that they blew an opportunity to, it's like, I get it. I mean, you got to remember what Brock Purdy's job is. His job is to play quarterback, but his job is also to lead the team. And so how do you lead the team if you're begging out? So I like a quarterback that always wants to play. I like a quarterback that always wants to be in there. It's up to Shanahan and Lynch to say, no, you were high with many of your passes this week. It didn't look like the Brock that we are familiar with. So we're going to go with Mac Jones. But you know what? Mac was dinged up as well. And Purdy's their starting quarterback, and he wanted to play. And they're like, hey, our starting quarterback, our better quarterback of the two wants to play. Let's put him out there. But you know what? Sometimes you got to protect guys from themselves. Sometimes you have to. I mean, his job is to be the leader of the room and to play quarterback. Well, it's hard to be the leader of the room if you beg out. So he wants to play. So take it off his goddamn plate.
Yes.
And take him out and just say, be the adult in the room, Shanahan. Be the adult in the room, Lynch. And say, you know what? We were at practice. We saw the I mean, are these guys watching the practices? That's the other thing. I'm at practice. I'm watching. Are they watching? I don't know. I don't know if they're watching, because if they were watching, they would have saw what I saw, which was that Brock Purdy was uncharacteristically high with a number of his passes. It doesn't take a genius. I asked a buddy of mine who's a quarterback coach who coaches quarterback mechanics. I said, if a quarterback's got turf toe and he's practicing with pain, what does it look like? I asked him this 10 days ago. And he's like, well, usually what it looks like is they get to the top of their drop and they're real hesitant to move their feet and to run because it hurts. And then also, you know, if they can't fire that toe into the ground, they a lot of times will place it into the ground softer. And there's nothing wrong with that, except that the timing gets off because it takes an extra second to get that toe down softer. Instead of firing it into the ground, you want to kind of place it on the ground because you're trying to avoid kind of play around the pain. But what that does is it leaves your mechanics and your arm mechanics too high and your release point's high. The other thing that was interesting in this game is that I'm sitting there next to Todd Husak, the former Stanford quarterback, and Todd is noticing that at every stoppage throughout the entire game, Brock Purdy walked over to the sideline and got Mac Jones to play catch with him. Now, is he doing that because he loves Mac Jones? No. Is he doing that for his love of catch? No. He's doing that probably because he just doesn't feel right. He just doesn't feel right. So wants to get more throws in. So every time there was a timeout, I mean, literally every single time there was a timeout, Brock Purdy is on the side throwing passes with Mac Jones, which is something that you will see only at the beginning of games, sometimes in the first quarter of games. You never see it after that. And he did it the entire game. So
when you see it when a backup quarterback is coming into a game.
Yeah.
So in other words, Jackson Dart got injured in his first start on Sunday, and you saw Russell Wilson throwing the ball to get warm. It's essentially a bullpen, Larry. It's to make it about baseball. Mac Jones is there as the bullpen catcher in that situation, and Brock is coming out to get more reps, as you said. There is just, in my estimation, to watch that entire game, it just felt like a missed opportunity. I felt like I was in the Langoliers from Stephen King when I saw the story that Brock Purdy, again, that we're looking at a Brock Purdy injury this week for the Rams when it could have been so clean. The headlines could have been so clean. Brock is a full go for Thursday, period. He could have been off the injury report on Monday, ready for the Rams. That would have been it. How clean and nice would that have been? Anybody could have played quarterback in that game against the Jags, especially now that it's got a loss on it, right? Because what, did you lose well? No, it doesn't even matter if you lose well. It's a loss. It's an AFC loss. It's largely going to be useless when it comes down to it, unless it costs Brock Purdy more games. That's the only way it could have shot you in the foot, and that's what you're looking at now. And Mac Jones was not a mystery, Larry. That's the other part that I don't enjoy here. Mac Jones had shown you that he was capable of keeping you in a game. And I kind of think that worked against the Niners here. Here's why. Because I love the Mac Jones signing. I talked about it all off season. I said, hey, this is one of the best signings the Niners have had. Why? Because now you got a legitimate backup quarterback you can win games with. And more importantly, Brock Purdy's an insane competitor. And now you've guaranteed that you're going to get the best out of Brock. And then this happened. And he wanted to be back. He wanted to be back out there.
He wants to be out there. Now Brock's afraid. If it was Brandon Allen, he wouldn't be afraid of losing his job. But you know what? It's Mac Jones, and Mac Jones has been a starter before, so I think Brock is out there trying to play because he's trying to show that he can do it, while and keep Mac off the field. So I think the competitiveness that I thought was a positive is now turning into a negative. Harry Balzac says, "What's up, Larry? How's the eye?" I did have a little bit of I am taking an antibiotic for my eye. I got some kind of basically I wear contact lenses. I fell asleep with it in, and I got yesterday. It wasn't pink eye though. It looked like pink eye. It's just kind of a red inflamed eye. So I do have eye drops going. So yeah, I'm working my way back. Today it's much better. I'm back in my lens. I'm feeling pretty good.
Nice.
But yesterday the eye was pretty red and looked pretty bad.
It's never great. That's never great, Larry. I'm glad you're recovering from that. The contacts are a part of it. I've considered contacts recently, and now I'm thinking maybe not. But yeah,
I'm a big fan of contacts, but it's to each their own. My brother has a hard time. He can't put them in. He's got to go glasses. I can't go glasses. When I do wear my glasses, my wife and my kids give me such grief about it because it makes me look like so smart,
sophisticated. You're the professor, Larry.
Yeah, I'm sophisticated and smart and wise, and it's like, Sometimes I'll put them at the end of my nose.
It's a good look, right? Yeah. Look, glasses are not always right. Like this does not make me look cooler. I mean, it's just not the look. Right? So.
What's hilarious too when you're watching TV shows, like I watch PTI, and those guys are older now, and your natural lens erodes in your 40s and 50s for everybody. I mean, there's almost nobody. It's like 1% of people that don't need some kind of help with their eyes. But like Kornheiser and Wilbon, you're watching that show, and they're both with their they're just bifocals, and up and down, and it's a terrible.
You know what they call these, Larry? What they call these in England, they call them 46ers, because at 46 everybody's got them. That's what they call these readers. Yeah. When you have readers, they call them 46ers. I'm not 49ers.
49er Granite Bay says, Larry, I'm usually with you and against Ryan, Jesse, Grant about trashing Purdy. But I'm sorry, sir, enough. Purdy is not the same guy since the Ravens exposed him during the Christmas game. Sorry. I don't agree with that.
Wrong.
I hate to say it. I love Grant, but those guys are haters. And they why would you ever listen to guys who were basically telling you that Trey Lance was way better than Brock Purdy? And suddenly Trey Lance is not even good enough to even be in the league, and basically he's just hanging on as a backup. And Brock Purdy's been to a Super Bowl, and you're still fighting this fight. It's like, give it up. It's over. Brock Purdy's a pretty good quarterback. And I don't think anybody said that Brock Purdy was Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, but I think, I know that Brock Purdy's as good as Jalen Hurts. It's just Jalen Hurts would be doing exactly what Brock Purdy's doing if he were on this team, and Brock Purdy would be doing exactly what Jalen Hurts is doing if he was on that team. That team has a great offensive line. That team has a great group of receivers. That team has the best running back. That team has a terrific defense. That team has a good special teams. That team complements their quarterback and doesn't ask him to do it all. I mean, you just saw Chris Jones going, you barely threw for 150 yards. It's like, yeah, because he's got help. Where the Niners have Brock Purdy, they have no run game. They can't do anything in the red zone. Their receiving core includes Kendrick Bourne, for crying out loud, who's, come on, what the hell's that? That's awful. And so, I mean, would these guys would you be 49er Granite Bay? Would you be trashing Brock Purdy if Brock Purdy were in Philadelphia, handing it to Saquon Barkley and leading them to a 14-win season? Probably not. It's just that, nobody can seemingly evaluate what's going on with the quarterback and around the quarterback.
It's all complimentary, Larry, and the Eagles are a great example of that. And by the way, Jalen Hurts does get a lot of, I won't call it hate. He just doesn't get the love And I'll admit he is not, I mean, he's not Patrick Mahomes. So to say, why is he not getting the same treatment that Mahomes does? He's not Mahomes. So people want to look at that position and say that he is not worthy of that record. But as you said, the totality of that team is absolutely worthy of the record, worthy of the Super Bowl championship, worthy of winning 19 of the last 20 games, 20 of the last 21 now. And that's it. And Brock Purdy, remember, had a run like that, Larry. Remember when Brock Purdy was unblemished? Brock Purdy, the start of his career, was perfect. And he was an MVP, not contender, favorite before, yes, that Christmas game against the Ravens. I will not say that he isn't the same guy since then. I will say that he was not the same guy on Sunday, and we all can admit that an injury played a factor because we were talking about an injury before that game, and we're now talking about the same injury after that game. That played a factor. The information that you got about how the mechanics would be thrown off ends that argument. This is not the conversation we're having. We're not having a conversation about Brock Purdy right now, other than the fact that I think he should be available without any headline heading into this Thursday game. And it should have been the only homework that he was doing over the last 2 weeks should have been Rams related only. He should have been taken out of the mix for the Jags. Don't waste my time with Jacksonville. This season is about facing the Rams on Thursday night. Now, who knows? And maybe he plays. I mean, again, he's going to want to play in this game. Maybe he plays again, and now he's dealing with this toe all season long.
Who knows more about football? You know, me, other content creators, or Baldy? Okay, this is what Brian Baldinger said on Brock Purdy's high number of turnovers since the start of 2024. He said so many of those turnovers now over the last 2 years is just the talent around him isn't as good, and every quarterback is only as good as the talent around him. That's what Brian Baldinger said about Brock Purdy's turnovers. I really think Brock Purdy's the right guy. If you build him a defense, a run game, and a fortress of an offensive line, go do it. Go do it. How do you pay a quarterback $265 million and ignore your offensive line? I mean, that's the most ridiculous thing ever. That's like,
well, ask the Dolphins, ask the Bengals.
I bought a Ming vase that's, priceless and it's worth millions. Oh, and by the way, I don't even have a security system on my house. But I bought a priceless heirloom, but I'm not going to have security. Why would you spend $265 million on a quarterback and ignore your offensive line? Make sense.
And again, look, everybody here would say that Joe Burrow is a quarterback that they've got no issues with. And Joe Burrow is on the list of 4, Larry, that we say are fairly untouchable in this league. When you're stacking quarterbacks, we say that there are 4 guys, and then after that, the list gets interesting. But we all say that Mahomes, Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Joe Burrow are the top 4 quarterbacks in this league. And yet, to what you just said, the Bengals have not figured out protecting Joe Burrow. And look at that. He is now out of this league again, waiting to come back to play while the Bengals are putting up 3 points on Monday Night Football. That's the disaster that happens when you don't protect your quarterback. And Joe Burrow even has more weapons around him, but when it comes to the line, he's in a very similar predicament to Brock Purdy. And that's why Brock now is dealing with this injury. So I'm almost out of gas on the Niners because I usually am not upset, Larry. I'm upset because watching that game Sunday, I just didn't think he should be out there. I just thought there was no rush and no urgency. And there's so much urgency Thursday. There was no urgency Sunday. There didn't need to be urgency around that game. And there is urgency now Thursday. And you don't even know if you have your starting quarterback.
To me, get your starting quarterback healthy and improve your offensive line. This is the 49ers offensive line. Coming into Sunday, they were 29th in the NFL in run block win rate. They were 31st in the NFL in stuffed run percentage.
Jesus.
Okay, they can't run. They can't run. They don't have a rushing touchdown, and they have Christian McCaffrey as their running back. So is Christian McCaffrey done? No. Their offensive line is not getting it done. The pressure rate allowed is third best in football, but that's a lot because Brock Purdy gets away from the rush. The pass block win rate for the Niners coming into Sunday was 22nd in the NFL.
That's awful. That's awful.
So they're 22nd in pass block win rate. They're 29th in run block win rate. They're 31st in stuffed run percentage. And then
and by the way, that number you just mentioned, I'll also say, I mean, the Eagles are in a similar predicament, by the way. The Eagles have not been able to run the ball the way that they did last season. The Eagles are having a big issue on first down in getting Saquon space, and it's made a massive difference. Saquon has not cracked 100 yards. He's not been the same guy. Saquon and CMC are in a similar boat, and frankly, CMC is better out of the backfield catching the football, and that's why Christian McCaffrey is actually still setting records for catches and rushes in a game. and yet the Eagles are 4-0, and the Niners aren't just 3-1; they're 3-1, and it's starting to look like more losses are to follow.
Trent Williams is not Trent Williams. He's given up 12 pressures, 2 quarterback hits, 96.3 pass blocking efficiency, but 72.4 pass blocking grade, 78.5 run blocking grade, 79.3 overall blocking grade. He's this is it. This is it for Trent. I mean, this has got to be it. This is probably the final year. So you got a great player at left tackle who's going to play a good game, a bad game, a good game, a bad game. Then at left guard, you have a rookie who's playing with a groin injury. At center, you have Jake Brendel, who the Niners claim is great, but the stats all say he's not. At right guard, you've got Purdy, who's regressed significantly. I don't know if it's because of injury, but he's not the same player that he was last year. At right tackle, Colton McKivitz is playing really, really well. So that's what you have on your offensive line right now. And they didn't invest in it very much in the offseason. We like some guys, but they weren't right there. I mean, once again, it's like you're acting like it's not, like there's no urgency here when there was tremendous urgency. The Niners I don't even think the Niners and the Niners fans even realize how much the Niners season is dangling by a thread. The Niners are a 2-tackle team. They have Colton McKivitz at right tackle. They have Trent Williams at left tackle. If they have to go to a third tackle, Burford's already hurt. Austin Pleasance is the guy, and he looked good in the OTAs and in the spring, but he's not a pass protector. He loses against speed, and then he also loses against power. So, I mean, you're talking about a guy who is not the answer. I mean, not the answer. And yet they are one Trent Williams or Colton McKivitz anything strain away from Austin Pleasance at starting tackle, which means that your quarterback's getting destroyed. So I don't know. Well, we're gonna have to see where this goes. But the
Chargers are in a similar spot. So the Chargers, if you'll notice, obviously no one thought
Slater.
Yeah, exactly. No one thought the Chargers should have lost that game in New York. Jackson Dart making his first start, and yet if you look at what happened in that game, they're already playing without Slater, and then they lose Alt in the game. You cannot survive losing your tackles. You simply cannot. And the Chargers are now in a similar predicament. Yes, it's one loss, but you look at the rest of the season, and if you're not getting what you're used to getting out of those tackle spots, and if you're losing guys, and these guys are starters in this league for a reason at that position. They're built differently than other people. This isn't about getting with the playbook. This isn't about learning something. You're simply built differently at that position than other humans on this planet. And if you're lucky enough, your team has 2 guys that are exceptional at that. The depth at that position is just so hard to replicate, Larry, because those people aren't born every day.
By the way, there was a play in this game that I thought was spectacular. I do want to share the screen on this one. The hook and lateral.
Oh,
this was a phenomenal play. I mean, look at that.
That's out of the Ben Johnson playbook, by the way. It's great.
That's a great play.
It is.
I mean, why do teams not do this more? I don't get it. I mean, this is a phenomenal play.
Lions beat the Cardinals. You remember that game last season, Larry? Lions beat the Cardinals on this play. In a tight one possession game, the Lions blew the game open against the Cardinals last year. I believe it was in Arizona, and they used that play to perfection.
The hook and lateral. It is a nice play. But that was the one bright spot of the game, the hook and lateral. All right, let's talk a little bit about the NFL. We're at the quarter pole. There's 32 teams in the league, and it's interesting. Some people would say it's a good sign. Other people would say it's a bad sign. But we're exactly a month in, and I think half the teams are done. And I have 8 contenders in the AFC. I have 8 contenders in the NFC. Here are my contenders. AFC, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, though I don't really believe in Pittsburgh, Indy, Jacksonville, Chargers, Denver, Kansas City, and I'll just throw the Ravens in there because they're the Ravens. But they're looking bad. They've lost 2 in a row, and now Lamar's got an injury. So they don't look good at all. John Harbaugh looks old. Their defense doesn't look good. Lamar doesn't look healthy. Isaiah Likely's out. I mean, they got issues. But I'll still put them in there as the eighth playoff team. In the NFC, I have Philly, Washington, Detroit, Green Bay, Tampa Bay, and then Niners, Rams, and Seahawks. So I have eight teams in each conference. And now you could make an argument for one, maybe somebody can make an argument for Atlanta or somebody, Houston, or I don't know who you want to make an argument for. But those are my 16 best teams, which is exactly half the league. There's 32 teams in the league, and I've got 16 teams that are viable a month in. Is some people would say that's a good sign, because in basketball or baseball, there's maybe fewer contenders after the first month than, actual World Series contenders. I don't know if I would agree with that in baseball. In basketball, it's very hard to kind of break into that championship caliber rung. What do you think? What do you think of those contenders? Are those yours, or do you have different ones?
They are, except I'm going to shave some off, Larry. You've got more than I do, because here's what it comes down to. The word contender without the word Super Bowl is one conversation. But a contender, if you don't say Super Bowl, yes, I think you're right with the list. If you're talking about truly representing the conference in the Super Bowl, there are teams that you have to eliminate from this conversation. That none of us can close our eyes and picture.
One from AFC and NFC. Who are you going to eliminate?
Jags are not part of this conversation.
Because
I just don't think the Jaguars have not shown enough. Now, their run game has been impressive, and ATN's been great, and losing Bigsby did nothing at all. That was a smart move.
Take the ball away.
They've been tremendous defensively. I like what they do. I still think so. I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on what's not happening with Trevor Lawrence, but there was an accuracy to Trevor Lawrence that he had. He used to set the bar from an accuracy standpoint, and that is no longer happening for Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence is missing people, and I don't know if Brian Thomas Jr. I don't know what is happening there. Obviously, look, sophomore seasons are different. You're not taking the league by surprise anymore, and now people are watching tape on you specifically to take you out of a game, so I can understand that difference. But Brian Thomas Jr. is not the difference that he was in the prior season. Jacksonville, if you close your eyes, can you picture Jacksonville beating Buffalo in Buffalo, Kansas City in Kansas City, or Baltimore in Baltimore in an AFC championship game? That's what I can't do. I can't wrap my head around that. And I understand. I just saw that.
I think they're way better than you think. I really do. I think they're way better than you think. I mean, you got to remember this. Jacksonville right now is, the one thing that Shanahan talked about with Cohn is that he's really good at getting the run game going. He ran the ball well with Bucky Irving in Tampa, and now he's running the ball well with backs that didn't run it well before he got there. And you've got Brian Thomas, who's a big-time player, who's not playing well right now.
Yeah.
But then you also have a defense that's taking the ball away. And if you look at every year, it seems like, every year we get to the playoffs, and there's always a surprise team, right? And almost always that surprise team is because they take the ball away on defense. I really believe taking the ball away on defense is your fastest way to get with the contenders. You want to win a Super Bowl, you want to run with the Super Bowl contenders, just get a team that does what Jacksonville has done. Jacksonville has 13 takeaways in 4 games.
Yeah, and getting after the quarterback is important. Getting to the quarterback and taking the ball away are the two biggest differences.
Josh Hines-Allen off the edges. To me, it was the great pickup was Jordan Lewis from the Cowboys.
Nice one for sure.
He's been tremendous.
The Jags.
Devin Lloyd looks amazing.
Jags and Colts is what to watch in that division, Larry. And there's going to be, one of those is going to come out on top and not both. And Houston just looks like something has happened there. And whether you believe in CJ Stroud or not, right now, there's not really a lot of reason to believe in him. And if you look at the first half of that game against the Titans, it was ugly. And Houston maybe put together their best offensive half to this point against Tennessee in that game, but they have been quite unimpressive to this point offensively. So Indy and Jacksonville look like the teams to watch there. And I believe a little more in Indy than I do in Jacksonville. What Indy is doing is more impressive, the totality of it. I feel like it's more sustainable. And you might laugh at me because I'm now taking Daniel Jones over Trevor Lawrence, but I feel like you're right. I mean, that's tough, right? I don't necessarily want to be on that island by myself, but I still feel your conversation about Brock Purdy earlier was about the weapons around, and I believe more in the weapons around. I believe in Jonathan Taylor. I believe in Warren, and I believe in the coaching staff there. I think Steichen's been close, and I think the idea that Anthony Richardson now is in their rearview mirror, that's going to help them. And I see Indy as that. Do I really think Indy could beat Buffalo in Buffalo, Kansas City in Kansas City, or Baltimore in Baltimore with a trip to the Super Bowl on the line? Not exactly. Not exactly. But if I'm going to take one out of your mix, I'm more comfortable taking Jacksonville out than I am Indy.
I don't think Kansas City circled the wagons for Baltimore, but I think Kansas City's window is closing on them. I think Baltimore, these teams all sound great, but we'll see. I mean, I don't know. Is Baltimore even going to make the playoffs? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, look, okay, so let's have that conversation. You have Pittsburgh and Baltimore in there. I didn't want to take Pittsburgh out there. I probably am putting Pittsburgh in this out of pedigree and out of Tomlin. I don't think I think Pittsburgh could have a very similar season to 2024. This is a team that is going to contend until the last 3 and 4 weeks of the season, and I could see it unraveling. And that's from a winning the division standpoint. Can Pittsburgh make the playoffs? Yes. Tomlin doesn't have losing seasons, so you're looking at basically having to just make one game of a difference to get in there. He finds a way to do that more often than not, but winning this division, I'm still going to go with Baltimore. And Larry, Baltimore finds ways to give games away every single season with Harbaugh. I don't know why. I don't know how that happens. They find ways to give away games that they should win, and then they play above their head in particular games. Now, of course, losing that Buffalo game 41-40 is going to hurt them in the end, and that's likely the difference between home field advantage. And we know they didn't look at all like themselves against Kansas City. Now, Lamar got injured in that game. You could say it was over before that. Lamar has a way of making those games interesting late. I say if Lamar is healthy through all of that game, it's not the blowout that it was. Nobody's excited and interested in seeing Cooper Rush at that standpoint. So that's a completely different game. I don't want to throw it out. You've lost to Buffalo and Kansas City if you're Baltimore. That's terrible. I mean, you're trying to make a difference against exactly those teams when the AFC is stacked up. So that's going to work against them. But now look at their division, Larry. Who do you believe in that division? Can we take Cincinnati out of the mix? I don't believe in anybody
in their division.
Okay. So Cincinnati's got no Burrow. Cleveland was looking incredible defensively, and now Detroit just really hung one on them. So we don't know, and they might be looking at Dylan Gabriel. So Cleveland still trying to get all of that together. And now it's about whether you think Rodgers through the entirety of a season is going to stay, quote, at this level, even though they very well could have lost to the Jets week 1. We know that. So no one's really thinking Pittsburgh's. I still think Baltimore is the team you would take in that division. And if Baltimore wins that division, they've got a home playoff game.
But to me, Baltimore's defense doesn't look nearly as good as it, you got to remember they lost McDonald. Last year was the first year without him. This is the second year without him. And, he's a really good defensive coach. Look at Seattle. Seattle's defense is really, really good, and they're getting better. Baltimore's defense had him, and their defense looks like it's getting worse. So I don't know. I think the most overrated aspect of NFL handicapping are people that just point to the quarterbacks. So okay. Mahomes, really? How did that Super Bowl bet go for you last year?
Yeah.
Is Mahomes better than Jalen Hurts?
Sure, but you can't do it anymore.
And what would Jalen Hurts look like if he was running behind this Niner offensive line with Tongus and Kendrick Bourne and no running game? And a defense that didn't have any pass rush and a horrible special teams. It's just like what
he'd look like?
He wouldn't look like Jalen Hurts.
What he'd look like, Larry? Jalen Hurts' rookie season is exactly what this would look like. His rookie season, they find a way to stumble into the playoffs and lose to the Bucs in a wild card matchup in Tampa with Tom Brady at the quarterback back then. That's what he was. And he was running for his life. He looked a lot more like Justin Fields than he did the Jalen Hurts that we see now. He was turnover prone. He could make spectacular plays, and he didn't have the kind of weapons that he has now. So it is much different. You're absolutely right. I just want to say that if I had $100 on AFC teams named Buffalo, Kansas City, Baltimore, Indianapolis, I might take that against and Chargers. Okay. If I had those 5 against the field in the AFC, I'd feel most confident about that. So let me say it again. Chargers, Chiefs, Bills, Ravens, Colts. versus the field in the AFC, I'm happy with my ticket.
Let me go with it again. Chargers.
Yes.
KC.
Yep.
Baltimore.
Buffalo.
And Indy.
And Indy. If I had that ticket versus anyone else you want to throw my way to, again, I'm talking about getting to the Super Bowl.
What do you think of Denver?
Denver's got a lot to show us. Denver's got a lot to show us. And they came on strong second half.
Very impressive Denver team last night. Denver can do things that lots of teams can't do. Denver's got two different running backs they can win with. They just smoked Cincinnati 28-3. They haven't gotten anything from Greenlaw. I'm not a Bo Nix guy, but they've got a killer run game. They ran for 5 yards a carry. They have J.K. Dobbins, who ran for over 6.5 yards a carry. They have R.J. Harvey. So you got a two-headed back. They got a pretty decent offensive line, and they got a nice group of receivers now.
Here's the beauty of what you're saying, though.
Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin, Adam Troutman, Evan Ingram. I mean, those are good receivers. And then
they're good. But look, Ingram hasn't been the guy.
Got a hell of a team. Nick Bonito.
Well, they're the best secondary in the league, right?
They have the best. They have the best coverage of anybody. There's nobody's open. I mean, honestly, they went up against Cincinnati last night with Higgins and Chase and shut those guys down.
Incredibly impressive.
Higgins had 3 catches for 32 yards. Jamar Chase had 5 catches for 23 yards on 8 targets.
Larry, here's the good news.
He went crazy on the sideline in the second half, pissed off.
Yeah, they're pissed because they want, guess what? Because now they don't want Browning. And guess what? Burrow's not coming in here anytime soon. So you don't want Browning. Good luck with whatever comes next. I still think they should make a trade for one of two people. I still think the Bengals need to bring Kirk Cousins into this.
Okay. But I mean, either way, we're talking about Denver. Denver is got a complete football team.
Okay, but Larry, here's the good news.
And a good home field.
Guess what we're going to see this week? Denver plays at Philly. So
I love it. I love it. Bring it on. To me, this could be a Super Bowl preview.
Okay.
I love the Broncos. I think the Broncos are really, really good because here's the thing. When you can cover, you can do all kinds of things up front. When you can cover the way they can cover, you can play all kinds of games, and we'll see how they are health wise. But
Denver's a good Larry. You're making the best.
Riley Moss and Barron, and that's Jaquan McMillan. They got guys who can cover. They can basically cover you. And nobody's really open. I mean, Cincinnati, I know those guys were bitching and complaining about the quarterback, but guess what? They weren't open.
No, they were not separating. They were not separating in that game. And that game that game got away from them early, but I'm still going to take those 5, Larry. I'm going to take Buffalo, Chargers, Ravens, Chiefs, Colts. And again, you've got a Colts-Broncos matchup that we've already seen that came down to the wire. Maybe you didn't love the ruling, but the Colts did win that game. And I understand the Broncos made a play on special teams that the penalty took away, and that was the difference in the game. But again, that's a toe-to-toe game with the Colts and Broncos, and that's really the best game that you could judge the Broncos on to this point because they did lose to the Chargers, although again, played toe-to-toe with the Chargers, but lost that game. So now we're going to see Denver against Philly. I think the short week's going to hurt them a little bit, Larry. I wish this wasn't a short. If this wasn't a short week for them, it might be a little more. And I still think Denver could absolutely win that game, but this will be the test. This will be the test. We got a week of AJ Brown now complaining about not getting the ball. So this is going to be a
game. This will be a good game.
And again, secondary is going to be.
You either have to play the favorite or beat the favorite. And I think in the NFC, based on what I've seen, I would take Philly. I would say they're the favorite, and I would play the favorite. But in the AFC. The favorites, Buffalo, Chargers, Baltimore, Kansas City. I'm not putting Indianapolis in there, but Buffalo, Chargers, Baltimore, Kansas City. I think those are all kind of.
Talk me out of the Chargers.
They're favorites.
Larry, talk me out of the Chargers. Talk me out of the Chargers right now.
The Chargers don't have an offensive line if they lose, as you said, both tackles.
Yeah, that's the big break there.
That's one. And two, is what's Herbert going to do when the chips are on the table? I mean, and how good really is their defense? That's
their defense. Wouldn't you say their defense still looks for real? There's nothing in that Giants game that
their
took that away from me.
defense in the past has evaporated come playoff time.
Injury,
I like the Chargers.
injury.
I mean, I picked Chargers, Niners
So
preseason, and I'm covering the Niners. I'm putting so many man hours into it. I am, and not that I don't believe in the Niners, but it was more of a flyer on the Niners because it's such a young team. And I see some symmetry in the fact that Niners Chargers. Last time the Niners won a Super Bowl, it was against the Chargers. And if they get it done, they get it done against the Chargers. I definitely don't think. I think Kansas City's sun is setting, and I think Baltimore is. I think John Harbaugh is done going to Super Bowls, and even though I like Baltimore's organization, I think Buffalo, for whatever reason, doesn't have good enough weapons or good enough defense. Chargers are always going to seem like they're always get key guys hurt. And I do like the Chargers, but if right now, I would say Denver and Philly would be my Super Bowl.
Okay, that's good. So NFC, right now. So give me your NFC. So we did AFC. I shaved a couple off your list for the AFC, and I told you who I would take on a Super Bowl flyer versus the field. I have 5 teams in the AFC. What are your NFC teams?
Well, Philly, Washington, Detroit, Green Bay, San Francisco, LA, Seattle, and Tampa. But I something about Green Bay says no. Something about Washington says no. Something about Tampa Bay says no. So I think it's really like Philly, Detroit, and maybe 49ers, maybe. I would say 49ers would be a third call. Maybe if you want. I know Dieter last night, who I respect Dieter's opinion quite a bit. Dieter said he likes Seattle. He likes Seattle to go to the Super Bowl. I think he said that. I'm not sure if he said that. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he definitely said he likes Seattle. So I don't know if he likes him to go to the Super Bowl, but I like Philly and Detroit. And if the Niners can get it together, I think the Niners can make a run. But to me, it's about Philly's the favorite. And, and it's like every horse race. If I go to the racetrack, do I play beat the favorite or do I play go with the favorite? And in the NFC, I would probably go with the favorite. And in the AFC, I would play beat the favorite. And I would probably go with Denver.
I like that a lot. I'm going to say NFC comes down to Philly, Detroit, NFC West champ. And I could see Tampa based on what really we see out of Baker Mayfield at the end of games. If Baker could win a playoff game that he's not supposed to, right? Baker could steal a playoff game, and that could very well be an NFC championship game if it came down to it. So I'll leave Tampa in there. Nothing I've seen from Tampa to this point would say that they're not a contender. The way they came back into the Philly game was impressive, even though, yes, again, Lane Johnson came out of that game for the Eagles in the second half, and that made a big difference. So I'll say NFC West champs. I would take NFC West champ Philly Detroit as a flyer right now versus the field. And the only other teams that could come into that would be Green Bay. I really think Green Bay is the only one that I didn't mention that could maybe do something there. And Green Bay at the moment, yes, something is different than it was. That week 1 win now feels like it's a long time ago when they beat the Lions, and nothing was impressive about the tie other than having a second left on the clock on Sunday night against the Cowboys. That said a lot about the Cowboys more than it did the Packers in that game.
It's all about the right. It's also about the right combination of injuries. Do you know who Detroit's backup quarterback is?
It's Kyle Allen.
Yeah, Kyle Allen. You know who their backup wide receiver is?
Well, it depends on what. Again,
they're Amon-Ra and Jameson Williams are the ones.
Tesla is the guy they
Raymond,
like.
They go 3 wide receivers.
Yeah.
They have a rookie named Isaac Tesla.
No, everyone likes that guy. They love that guy.
Yeah,
Tesla.
I like him too, but he's not a starting NFL receiver. And Dominic Lovett, they lose an Amon-Ra, they're cooked. They lose Goff, they're beyond cooked. Even if they lose Goff for like a month. And they lost Frank Ragnow. They don't have Ragnow at center. They have Graham Glasgow starting at center. They got a rookie starting at right guard, Mahogany at left guard. I'm just saying, Penei Sewell and Taylor Decker are great, but they used to have Frank Ragnow in the center. Yep. Now they don't. So Goff being pressured up the middle, to me, that's their Achilles heel, is they have Jared Goff. He's not mobile. They don't have a great center. And their backup quarterback, I don't think they can win with. So that's what worries me about Detroit. It's a
And
long
Rams
year.
have a similar situation. Rams have a similar issue.
No. The Rams don't. The Rams have Jimmy G.
Receiver would be a struggle. You lose Puka, that's a different team. I mean, if we're talking about taking people off of a team, I just think the Rams without Puka, and I understand Devontae Adams. Okay, Tutu Atwell had a nice play in this last game against Indy, basically the walk-off, but I don't think Tutu's going to be an every down.
The Rams guy that they can't lose is clearly
Verse.
Defense. It's on defense.
Verse would
It's like
be
if they
brutal.
lose, their defense is really thin.
Yes.
I mean, they're back. It's Braden Fisk, Poona Ford, Kobe Turner, Byron Young. That's a great front four. That is an absolute monster group with Verse as the
Verse.
You got Verse and Agent Zero off the edges, and then gigantic Poona Ford inside, who's just great against the run, and then Fisk and Turner. I mean, that's a really, really good defensive line. But behind those guys, it's nothing. Jared Verse's backup is Nick Hampton. I don't mind him, but he's not nothing compared to him. Larrell Murchison, Ty Hamilton, Ty Davis, Josiah Stewart. If the Rams suffer injuries to their D-line, they're not very good. And you can say the same thing about their secondary. They don't have any depth. So, but they were healthy last year, and so far they've been healthy this year.
And Stafford again, Stafford had the back issue into the season, and then it has not been an issue now. So that's great. So good for them, and I certainly hope for everyone to stay healthy in that regard. I still think in the NFC, I would happily take a Rams, Seahawks, or Niners, whoever wins the division. Eagles, Lions, Tampa would be my ticket to guarantee me a Super Bowl berth if I had that. If you could give me that, I would gladly walk to the window. Eagles, Lions, Tampa, and then NFC West champ.
Not a believer in Green Bay or Washington.
No, not to win an NFC championship game. No.
Yeah, I kind of see it as Philly is separated. That's how I see it. I think Rams could get in the mix if Stafford's hot and they're perfectly healthy. Niners could get in the mix if everybody was healthy and they everything. They got all the good answers, and Purdy got healthy, and everybody. Kittle came back and was Kittle, and
I think there would have to be a trade at this point. At this point, I think the Niners would need a trade. I think the Bosa thing is going to require some D-line
trade for sure. I mean, they're going to have to. The Niners are going to have to add something to their D-line. Period. They don't necessarily have to add Hendrickson. But I mean, I would give the Niners basically a puncher's chance. That's all I'd give. To me, it's Philly's year, and the Niners have a puncher's chance. And I would also give LA a puncher's chance, and I would give Detroit a puncher's chance. So that's how I kind of see the NFC.
One thing I want to say about Philly, Larry.
AFC, I think, is wide open. I think AFC. I think you're going to see upsets. I think you're going to see teams. I know everybody's big on Buffalo, and Buffalo looks good, but it seems like when push comes to shove, Buffalo's weapons and defense aren't good enough. Chargers always seem to hurt. Baltimore, I think, is Lamar doesn't win in the playoffs, and their defense doesn't look great. We'll see if they can circle the wagons. Indy, I think, they're off to a hot start, but we'll see where it goes.
If Buffalo is the one, Larry, this is the year. Can we say that? If Buffalo's the one, you don't believe in Kansas City the way you did. And that seems to be their kryptonite. You likely don't even have Kansas City in the AFC Championship game. If Buffalo hosts I like anybody,
Denver.
Okay.
I like Denver.
Denver travels. I will say Denver would travel, but
Denver's corners are going to shut down Khalil Shakir.
Keon Coleman. Yeah.
Keon Coleman. Keon Coleman's going to get nothing. Khalil Shakir's going to get nothing. Denver's going to roll out that coverage. If Denver's healthy, Denver will beat Buffalo.
I love that. Look, I love that you and I are now. Let's mark this. You have Denver as someone that could do this. I don't. I think it would be an awesome story. I hope that's the AFC Championship game, and you and I are sitting there with all of it on the line. And in the NFC, I only say one thing about Philadelphia. So the conversation about Philadelphia is they're 4-0, but they're flawed. And the 2023 season, Larry, which was the season after the Eagles lost the Super Bowl to the Chiefs, on the Bradbury call in the end zone, basically, that gave the Chiefs the win in that game. The next season, they started 10-1. They beat Josh Allen in overtime in Philly to go 10-1. And then guess what the next week was, Larry? You remember this? This was the rematch of the NFC Championship from the year before. Remember, this was the Debo game where he smashed the Eagles. Remember, the Eagles got destroyed. The Eagles came in at 10-1. Niners rolled them up, and the Eagles the next week got destroyed by the Cowboys, and their season unraveled. I will only say to those of us that think Philly is at that level, if Philly is flawed at 4-0, they were flawed at 10-1, they could collect wins, and there could be something going on. And the A.J. Brown thing is starting to chirp a little bit. This is an interesting point in the season for the Eagles, and unlike last year, they don't have a bye week.
What are you saying about the Eagles here?
Okay, Eagles in 2024, Larry, were 10-1. 2023, apologies. 2023 season.
And the Niners beat them and they circled the drain.
And it never recovered, and they got blown out by Baker in the wild card game in Tampa.
They had no defense. They lost Chauncey
Yep.
Gardner-Johnson. They got guys named Blankenship back there. It was a disaster.
And everything unraveled. Now, they didn't have A.J. Brown in the wild card game either, but they were a catastrophe. They fell apart that season. They only won one game out. They went 10-1, and then they only won one game the rest of the season. I'm only suggesting that the conversation is similar again in that Philly has flaws at 4-0. So just understand that this Philly team also has in their history the ability to show up as someone that looks like the best team in the conference and then begin to stumble. That also could happen, and they have major games ahead on the schedule. This Eagles team has been pressed already.
I mean, they look great early, but it's a long year. It's a long year.
So I just, in regards to separation, I'm not there.
One more team that, one more major significant announcement this morning that I think impacts this conversation greatly, and we haven't hit it. The Ravens lost Justin Matabuke, or Nnamdi Matabuke.
Yes, Nnamdi, yep.
He used to be Justin, but now he's Justin at A&M. But now Matabuke, who's 27 and is one of the best defensive tackles in all of football, done for the year. Out for the year. Neck injury. He's gone. So that's a huge blow. The Ravens defense with Matabuke has allowed an NFL worst 33.3 points per game. 33 points a game. And they just lost their best defensive lineman. So you may see the Ravens try to add a defensive tackle in the trade market. And then, not only that, they came out of this game, Baltimore did. Nate Wiggins has got an elbow. Marlon Humphrey's got a calf. Roquan Smith's got a hamstring. Ronnie Stanley's got an ankle. I mean, they are banged up. They're going to lose this week, I bet.
And
I bet you Houston beats them this week. They're 1-3 for the first time in a decade.
Now, I did say going into that Chiefs-Ravens game.
Cooper Rush may start Sunday against the Texans.
That's brutal. Okay, so we know that's brutal. I also said firmly that the team that could afford the loss between the Chiefs and the Ravens most was Baltimore. Baltimore, from a divisional standpoint, has an opportunity to rebound. I didn't think Kansas City did with having the loss already to the Chargers. But Baltimore is an uphill battle, but they have figured this out before, Larry, and they have lost games that they shouldn't have in the past, and Harbaugh has figured it out. I agree that, the defensive line injury is brutal. And this is not your grandfather's Ray Lewis Ravens defense. It's not at all. This is not even close. This is not Ed Reed and T. Suggs and Ray Lewis. It's much different. And the jerseys look the same, and they get a lot of playmakers. And every time they draft a good defensive player, everyone just immediately assumes that that's going to work out, because more often than not, their defense really matters and holds up. I think in the end, they're going to win that division. They're going to host a playoff game. And of course, are they going to be the 1 seed? It doesn't look like it. They don't have a tiebreaker against Buffalo. They don't have a tiebreaker against Kansas City. That's going to play a factor. This is likely not a 1 seed. This is a team that's going to have to win in Buffalo. To your point, maybe they have to win in Denver or at LA. It's not looking like a Super Bowl season. Baltimore will still be there. They will be a playoff team. They will win this division.
Unbelievably, I'm looking at the ESPN power rankings. They have the Niners at 12 and Denver at 13 and Jacksonville at 14, despite just beating the Niners. That's befuddling.
One question before we go.
That's
Larry,
interesting.
So you've watched a lot of the Niners, and I've watched the Niners, but also the Eagles a lot. One of those two teams is going to have to figure out the run game, or they will not be in the Super Bowl. When you talk befuddling, the Eagles haven't been able to run the ball, and the Niners haven't been able to run the ball. And even though the Chargers have been pass first this season, when nothing was working right for them on Sunday against the Giants, Hampton broke out and had his best run in his rookie season for the Chargers. So they figured out a little something there in the run game. The Niners and the Eagles have not figured out the run game this season. And you can say the names and you can look at it, and we all thought that the Niners had the best tandem coming into the season next to Detroit. Obviously, Gibbs and Montgomery are, but with Robinson and McCaffrey, you just assumed that the Niners were going to have a dominant run game, and it has been anything but. And
teams are putting 8 guys in the box against the Niners and just saying, hey, we dare you to throw it. And so the 49ers have to throw it. So they're going to have to throw their way out of it. And the Eagles, I kind of think are in a similar situation. I mean, you're talking about their inability to run, but the Eagles through 4 games have had wild swings. I mean, they were -1 passing yards in the first half against the Rams in week 3, and then erupted in the second half and had this great comeback win. Hurts in the first half went 15 of 18 with 2 touchdowns in the first half against the Buccaneers, and then went 0 for 8 in the second half, and Buccaneers almost came back and won the game. So I think
they almost came back to potentially tie the game. I
think their run game issues are that Hurts is, I think is tied to their passing game. I think the Niners run game issue is tied more to their line. Because I don't think, they can throw it, and they've thrown it well, but I mean, the Niners have a top 5 passing offense, but they can't run. They're 28th in the NFL in running the ball.
Well, much like what you said in regards to left tackle for the Niners and how important that is, and that obviously we're not dealing with the same player anymore in Trent Williams. There is a little bit to the idea that Cam Jurgens is not quite at the level he was last season either. Now, I'm not saying he's injured. It definitely does happen. And on the offensive line, the Eagles, Stoutland and the Eagles will have to figure out the run game, and so will the Niners, or this conversation is going to be about another team. Because
go ahead. Go ahead, Shane.
If you look at what happened last season, obviously the Eagles separated when it came to their run game. That was, the most prolific running season of all time in this league, when you combine regular season and postseason, was Saquon Barkley and the Eagles. And if they don't come back to some semblance of that, they're going to struggle.
MSQ, let's hit some supers before we jet. MSQ says LA has proven to be San Francisco's get-right game. Thoughts? Well, it has been in the past, but doesn't mean it's going to be that way in this game. The one thing about the Rams have the 4th best offense in football. They have the 3rd best passing offense in football. The Niners have no pass rush. So the 3rd best passing offense against a 49er pass defense that's 6th overall, but has no rush. The Niners are 26th in sacks. The Niners have 5 sacks. The Rams have 14 sacks. Rams have almost 3 times as many sacks as the 49ers. That's unbelievable. So I think it's going to be a real struggle. And it's going to be a real struggle for the 49er offensive line to block this Rams defensive front. And then the Niners are 30th in turnover differential, -5 after losing 4 turnovers last week. So it's a huge game for the 49ers. If they need a bounce back performance in the worst way, and it's going to be tough to get that win. Thomas Selman, Purdy wasn't great, but 6 drops. CMC ball was catchable, and BS interception. Wide receivers get 0 separation, also has no run game. He has to do more than he should. Yeah, that's what I would say to the people who are crapping all over Brock Purdy. It's like nobody ever represented that Brock Purdy could somehow elevate this team behind a bad line with no run game, with no pass rush on defense, and horrible special teams. It's not like Brock. I don't think there's a quarterback out there. We just saw the best quarterback of this era lose the Super Bowl in dramatic fashion because he wasn't on as good a team as the other team. It's a team game. I think it's lazy to just put it all in the lap of the quarterback. Bill Kennedy, can the 49ers improve the O-line this year? They have to be willing to make a tough call. They are wed to Jake Brendel, and you're not going to pull out either tackle. That's a no-brainer, right? As I just stated, you don't even have a good 3rd tackle, so you're not going to take out your tackles. Your guards, I think, are the future of your line, so it's really more about Brendel. And Forster loves Brendel, and so I don't think Brendel's going anywhere. But yes, I'd like to see Nick Zakelj, Drake Nugent, Matt Hennessy. I'd like to see any number of guys. You can't sit there all year and get, not just this year, it was last year too, where you can't run the ball and you have Christian McCaffrey and just pretend that you don't know what it is. It's like, dude, you're not opening run lanes. He's running into walls. Paul Glass is Larry Sammy, Dante Moore at Oregon special. #Ducks.
One thing about that game, the Oregon game, the post game from Dan Lanning, for those who haven't really appreciated it, Larry, we've all had a friend that looks like Dan Lanning at the end of the night or early in the morning. The post game of Dan Lanning in that game was so spectacular. I mean, if you're a fan of Oregon or not, Larry, you need to see the excitement that he has for winning that game, for finding a way to win that game against Penn State. I can only say he looks cranked out of his mind, Larry, but there's also something to the emotion of college football and when, and how much those games matter. And obviously the extended playoff makes it a little less significant, each and every game, but he knows that was a program defining win in the Big Ten. And he looks as juiced as anyone in that, the arena.
They're good. And James Franklin doesn't win big games.
He hasn't found a way. And that was a game that he largely should have won, and it looked early like he may. But yeah, that was rough. But the landing thing is great. You got to see that.
Paul Glass says found Kittle's replacement, Kenyon Sadiq for the Ducks. Interesting. All right, that's going to do it for us. Thanks to before we get out of here, we have one lap. We always finish with our big finish. Sammy, give me your prediction in 49ers Rams Thursday night. National TV audience, and of course, this will make this our Habbas Law prediction of the night or prediction of the day. Brought to you by Habbas Law. I'm a big fan of Habbas Law. 1-800-INJURED. They will fight to make it right. Today's show is sponsored by Habbas Law. For more than 40 years, Omar Habbas and his son Tarek have been standing up for people right here in Northern California. They're fierce, relentless personal injury attorneys. They don't back down until justice is done, but they're also good guys. They're rooted here in the community. They care about people. They were aligned with San Jose State, the Earthquakes, the Sharks, Santa Clara University. So they're very much rooted here. So if you need someone in your corner, call the firm that insurance companies hope you never call, and that's Habbas Law. They will fight to make it right. Visit habbaslaw.com on the web, HABBAS law.com on the web. And also you see the phone number on the screen, 1-800-INJURED. If you need a personal injury attorney, these guys are the best. My dad was an attorney. He's no longer with us. My brother is an attorney and now a judge. My sister is an attorney. My dad always used to say the key to life is making sure you have the right attorney. So Habbas Law, I'm a big fan. Habbas Law, 1-800-INJURED. They will fight to make it right. Sammy, what do you see Thursday night, Niners Rams?
This league has a way of turning everything we think on its head, Larry. And what you would say is the trajectory of each of these teams at the moment would point to a Rams home victory. But the history of this rivalry, specifically between Shanahan and McVay, is that Shanahan, more often than not, finds a way to be on top in this matchup, finds a way against his greatest rival in this league to end up on top in these particular matchups. It's a divisional game, and we also know that the home field doesn't mean much because the Niners fans are going to flood SoFi. There is going to be red everywhere at that game Thursday night. I say that in a very tight game, that Eddie Pinheiro is your hero at the end. And much like an ugly Cardinals win that happened 2 weeks ago, I could see an ugly divisional game going for the Niners. And like I said, teams generally get high on their own headlines. The Tutu Atwell thing was very nice against Indy. The Rams are riding high, and they could say, wow, we had the champs beat as well, and we could be perfect. This is a humbling game. This brings the NFC West back to a we don't know who's going to win it place. I see the Niners find a way to win this game.
I say Niners get the rushing game going. Demarcus Robinson has 2 touchdowns against his former team, and the 49ers find a way to win at SoFi on a night where the red and gold show up huge in great number. Sammy, have a great week. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks to all of you guys. Links are in the description for all of the sponsors. Sammy, promote your pod on your way out the door.
Thank you so much, Larry. It's such a pleasure to hang out with Andrew Siciliano most weeks. Thinking Out Loud is where you can find us. Thinking Out Loud, Siciliano and Sam is where you can find all of our content on YouTube. We love co-streaming with you, Larry, at Krug Show, and this is a pleasure every single week. I love tapping into your brain, and I know everybody in the comments does as well.
Awesome stuff. I'm off to Ninerland, a big Tuesday in Ninerland. It's a get it in work day. Everything's got to get done today. Sam, you have a great week. Have a great day, everybody. We will be back. No Niners Nightly tonight. I'm off tonight, but I'm back tomorrow night at 6 o'clock on The Sports Leader. So check me out on the radio tomorrow night at 6. Until then, peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful.